Okay. Hey. So our first speaker this afternoon is Laurent Laforgue from IHES, who is going to be speaking on Drinfeld-Stucki and Langland's correspondence. And it's a particular pleasure for me to be hearing this talk in English for the first time.
Okay. So I want to outline some features of the proof of the global Langlands correspondence over function fields, generalizing what Drinfeld had done in the case of rank 2. So first, I introduce some notations. So X is projective on smooth curve over a finite field Fq with Q elements. F will denote the function field of the curve X, and A will denote the Adel ring. So the theorem is the following. For any integer, there exists a unique bijection preserving local L factors. So we will denote this bijection by sigma pi. It goes from automorphic cuspidal representations of GLRA, whose central character has a finite order, to L-adic representations, sigma, of the Galois group of F, which are irreducible of dimension R and whose determinant has finite order. So this is the theorem we want to prove. And the first thing I have to say is that the proof will be by induction. So one considers an integer R which is at least true, and one makes the induction hypothesis that the theorem is already known in ranks strictly less than R. Then we are going to construct the L-adic representation sigma pi's in the L-adic cohomology spaces over the generic point of the surface X cross X of some geometric objects which were invented by Drinfeld. So first, the classifying stack of Drinfeld's Stuckas of rank R, and we also need the classifying stacks of Drinfeld-Stuckas of rank R with level n structure. So here a level is a finite closed subscheme of the curve X. So by now, what I want to do is to recall very quickly what are the main lines of the proofs and the main principle of this proof. So the starting point is these geometric objects. So they have a finite number of connected components. In order to get rid of this fact, one chooses an invertible Adel whose degree is non-zero. One divides out by this group, and then this has only a finite number of connected components. So I want to say what are the main geometric properties of this object. First, they are smooth over x minus n cross x minus n. The relative dimension is 2r minus 2. Secondly, they are endowed with an action of the Hecke algebra. So this is the Hecke algebra of GLR of A with level n. So considering functions which are bi-invariant by the congruence group associated to n. Okay, but the main problem about these objects is that they are not of finite type. Of course, as they are smooth, they are locally of finite type, but they are not of finite type, which means they are not quasi-compact. In order to overcome this difficulty, one considers truncations. In fact, truncations by the Harder-Narasimhan polygon. So one gets some new objects. So here I introduce this truncation parameter P, which is a polygon, but okay. So these are some open substacks in these huge geometric objects. They are of finite type. So their Aladic homology spaces are finite dimensional. And we also have a counting formula for fixed points. Fixed points by Hecke correspondences. So the correspondences associated to the functions in the Hecke algebra composed with Frobenius morphism. But here we meet a new problem, which is there are no Hecke correspondences. So we have counted the number of fixed points of Hecke correspondences in these open varieties, but these open substacks are not stabilized by the Hecke correspondences, and because of that, this counting formula doesn't have any cohomological meaning. In order to recover some action of Hecke correspondences on cohomology, one has to do another construction, which is compactification. In fact, this compactification may be total or partial. I will say more about that later. So in the case without level structure, one will get a true compactification, and with level structure, one will get a partial compactification. So anyway, it will be smooth over x minus n cross x minus n. The boundary will be a relative divisor with normal crossings, and there will be correspondences induced by the elements of the Hecke algebra. But the main drawback about this is that this is not an action of the Hecke algebra. So there are individual correspondences acting on cohomology, which are defined simply by taking algebraic closure or normalization, but they do not, the formation of these correspondences is not compatible with product. So this is not an action of the Hecke algebra. Okay, so the principle of the proof is to isolate in these three geometric objects some part of their cohomology which will be the same for the three objects. And because of that, we will get for this part of the cohomology all information we need coming from these three objects, each one with its own structures. So in order to do this splitting, one introduces the following definition: an irreducible L-adic representation of GF2. So here I denote by F2 the function field of the surface X plus X. Of course, our cohomology spaces over the generic point of X plus X are representations of this group. So such a representation is said to be R negligible if it is a direct factor of a representation which has the following form: the tensor product, the exterior tensor product of two representations coming through the two projections of X cross X to X, with these two representations being irreducible. So these are to be irreducible representation of GF with dimensions strictly less than R. So this is the definition, and such a representation is said to be essential otherwise. So if it is not of this form. Okay, and so the theorem we prove, which is sufficient to get the Langlands correspondence, is the following. The L-adic cohomology spaces with compact support over F2 of the variety of the stack of Drinfeld-Stukas, or the truncated substacks, or the compactifications, partial or total, have the same essential part. In particular, this is the essential part of the first object. And the first object is endowed with an action of the Hecke algebra. Because of that, this Galois representation is also endowed with an action of the Hecke algebra, and it can be decomposed in as the following: the sum over all automorphic cuspidal representation of GLR whose central character is trivial at A, this is not important, of here, so pi, you take the vector invariance under the congruent subgroup attached to the level you are considering, times sigma pi, more precisely the pullback by the first projection, times the pullback by the second projection of sigma pi dual, with a twist by 1 minus r. So this is the theorem. Okay. So this is the principle of the proof. So in this situation, we see we need some compactifications in order to recover Ecke correspondences acting on finite type objects. And so what I want to do in the remaining part of the talk is first to say which properties we need for these partial or total compactifications, and secondly, to outline the way they are constructed. So what are the needed properties for these partial or total compactifications? So first, for any element in the Ecke algebra, we want the Ecke correspondences extended by normalization to be a true geometric correspondence. This means that the two projections from this geometric object to our compactifications to be proper. Secondly, we want these geometric correspondences to induce some cohomological correspondences on our compactified stack X. So an easy way to get that is to require X to be smooth over the base. S equals X minus N cross X minus N. Because we have a counting formula for fixed points only on the open variety of real Stukas, one also need to write this open variety as the difference between the compactification and the boundary. And for this reason, one also wants the elements H to induce some cohomological correspondences on the closed boundary strata, which I will denote in this way. So we here with an indexing set I. So, and of course, an easy way to get that is the boundary to be a relative divisor with normal crossings. Fourth, one wants some Grothendieck-Lefschetz type fixed point formula which relates the number of fixed points on the open variety of real Stukas and the action on cohomology on the compactification. So we get a formula, we want a formula which has the following form. Yes, here I denote by X empty, so the open substack of real Stukas. This is so no here for base. Okay, so one wants first the action on the cohomology of the compactification, and then some correcting terms. So this is an alternate sum, but it is not very important, of this cohomological correspondences, which I denote clades of H with an index I, composed with the Frobenius elements on the cohomology of the boundary. And in order to get such a formula, one needs a geometric property, which is the following. We need all these cohomological correspondences to stabilize the open substack of Stukas. So, of course, this is not true, but in fact, to stabilize them locally, not globally, locally in a neighborhood of their fixed points. Okay, so I don't want to be more precise than that, but it is some local property. And the last property we need in order to realize this program is the following. We want all three objects to have the same essential part of cohomology. In order to have that, we want the boundary of the compactification to have some cohomology spaces are negligible. The cohomology of the boundary strata, this cohomology has to be R negligible. So, and in fact, we will prove that as a consequence of a geometric property, which is the fact that the boundary strata classify families of baby Stukas of ranks R1, Rk for all possible non-trivial partitions of the integer R. And of course, we will use the full force of the induction hypothesis. Okay, so here are the properties we need. And what I want to do is first to explain how the compactifications without level structures are constructed, and then to explain the case with level structures. But in fact, all the geometric properties we need for the partial compactifications with level structures come from the compactifications without level structures. Okay. So Stukas have been defined by Drinfeld as some vector bundles plus some modification plus some isomorphism between these vector bundles and their transform by the Frobenius. So in order to compactify this object, we will introduce another moduli problem, which is to replace this isomorphism between the transform by Frobenius and the modification by a so-called complete homomorphism. So first, what we need to do is to introduce complete homomorphism. So over a scheme S, a complete homomorphism, which I will denote in this way with a double arrow, because it is something richer than a morphism. So between two vector bundles of rank R consists in the following data. Firstly, invertible vector bundles L1, LR-1, plus some global sections L1, LR-1. So this is over S. Secondly, a family of everywhere non-zero homomorphism which go from all exterior powers of E to all exterior powers of F, but where we allow a twist by this invertible vector bundle. So all these morphisms have to be non-zero, which is non-zero at everywhere, at every closed point, and they have to verify some relation. So the main one is the following. The S exterior power of U1 has to be equal to U index S, but with a twist by the global section L index T. So there is in particular these relations. Generically, they are the only ones, but there are also some relations which I don't write. Okay, so this is the definition of a complete homomorphism. So maybe I can make a remark about this definition. This is that any such complete homomorphism between two vector bundles induces a point in the following stack, A1 divided by GM, which is the classifying stack of invertible vector bundles endowed with global sections, to the power R-1, of course, with values in S. And I should say also that, of course, this stack is a continuous object, but it has only a finite number of points, and these points are naturally indexed by partitions of the integer R. Okay, so this is a global definition of complete homomorphism. But we just said that we have a morphism to A1 divided by GM to the power R-1, and in this stack there are only a finite number of points. So we can consider the pullbacks of these points. This defines some classification. This defines some classification of the complete homomorphism in locally closed strata. And now I want to give a modular description of this strata. So such a complete homomorphism over the point of A1 divided by GM to the power R-1 indexed by such a partition R underline consists exactly in the following data. Firstly, an increasing filtration of E and a decreasing filtration of F by sub-vector bundles such that the graded objects are locally free of ranks R1, R2, Rk. And the third datum is exactly a family of isomorphism between the graded objects. And here, I want to stress the fact that there is nothing else than this data, and in particular, no relations. Okay, so this is everything we need to know about complete homomorphism. And now I can introduce the moduli problem for compactifying Stukas. So here is the definition. So I call that an iterated Stuka of rank R over a scheme S over FQ consists in the following data. Firstly, a vector bundle E locally free of rank R on X cross S. Secondly, a modification of E, which means a diagram like that, where E prime and E second are two vector bundles of rank R on X cross S, and G and T are two linear embeddings between these vector bundles whose co-kernels are supported by the graphs of two morphisms, the pole and the zero, which go from S to X. So here is S, here is X, and you consider the graphs of two morphisms. And so these co-kernels have to be supported. So these co-kernels as coherent sheaves on X cross S has to be supported by these two graphs and invertible over OS. Okay, so these two data are part of the definition of real Stukas. But in the definition of Stukas, the third datum is an isomorphism between the transform of E by the Frobenius and its modification E second, whereas in iterated Stukas, you require these you want not an isomorphism, but a complete homomorphism. But there is some extra condition. When you have a complete homomorphism, there is an associated point in A1 divided by Gm to the power R minus 1 with values in X cross S. And you want these points to come from A1 divided by Gm to the power R minus 1 with values in S by pullback. So this means that your vector bundles and their global sections, yes, here, have to be defined not on x plus s, but on s. They do depend only on the variable s. They do not depend on x. Okay. So by now, one prove very easily there is a classifying stack, which in fact is an R-tin stack for iterated Stukas. Of course, as part of the definition, you have a modification of the vector bundle on two morphisms from S to X, and this defines two morphisms from this stack to X plus X. Of course, when all these points take values in GM divided by GM with values in S, you have here, you get nothing else than the open variety of Stukas. Of course, I should have said that isomorphisms are a particular case of complete homomorphism. And lastly, because of this condition in the definition of iterated Stukas, we get a morphism from this classifying stack to A1 divided by GM to the power R minus 1. Okay, so by now I want to give the main geometric properties of iterated Stukas. So first, for any partition, you have a stratum in the stack of iterated Stuka, which is the pullback of the locally closed point associated to this partition. So this stratum over the point of A1 divided by GM to the power R minus 1 indexed by R underlined is endowed with a morphism. Yes, what can we do? Thanks to this lemma, we know how to describe a complete homomorphism over this point. So you see, you have two decreasing filtrations and the isomorphism between the gradient objects. And in fact, when you write that for iterated Stukas, what you get is, on the graded objects, is a structure of Stukas. So we get a morphism to Stukas. But in fact, each Stuka has a 0 and a pole. And in this family, the 0 of the first Stuka has to be the pole of the second one. The 0 of the second Stuka has to be the poles of the third one, and so on. Yes. In fact, to be precise, here we have a right Stuka and here left Stukas, but I don't want to enter into these technical details. So anyway, the important thing is that the boundary strata, in the boundary strata, we see appearing Stukas of lesser ranks. And this morphism is a finite, surjective, and radical. Also, a very important consequence of this proposition is that we have a composed morphism to, of course, x plus x, so the pole on the 0, and in fact the pole of the iterated Stuka is the pole of the first Stuka, and the 0 of the iterated Stuka is the 0 of the last Stuka. But in the between, there are also extra powers of x in fact, there are k minus 1 of them. I should say that in the case r equals 2, everything can be done by Drinfeld. And in this case, there is one extra power, which Drinfeld has called the degenerator. So here, these objects will be called degenerators. And in fact, I should say that all geometric properties we need about Stuka, so the local stability property I mentioned earlier, and also the global stability property when I will speak about when coming to level structures, all of them come from the existence of degenerators. Okay, then the hard theorem about these compactifications without level structure is that for any truncation parameter P, in fact, you have to require it to be convex enough, but it is not important, there exists an open substack in the huge stack of iterated Stukas such that the following properties are verified. First, its intersection with the stack of real Stukas is the open substack of Stukas whose canonical polygon is lesser than P. Secondly, the morphism from this object to x cross x, so the pole on the 0, and A1 divided by Gm to the power R minus 1. So this morphism is smooth. And this, in fact, is equivalent to say that this object is smooth over x cross x, and the boundary is a divisor with normal crossings. Thirdly, this object, divided, of course, by a to the power z in order to have only a finite number of connected components, is proper over x cross x. Okay, so this is everything I wanted to say about compactifications without level structure. Now, I want to finish my talk by giving some indications for the case with level structures, where firstly I had made a serious mistake, and so I had to prove other things. In order, so let's choose a level which is a finite closed subscheme of X. So in order to study this situation, the important point is to study the restriction, is to consider the restriction morphism from X to N. So what does it mean? Stukas are vector bundles E over X times some scheme S, endowed with some extra structure. And what you can do is to associate to this object the restriction to N cross S. Okay? So this defines a morphism, so the restriction morphism, which goes from the stack of iterated Stukas. Yes, and in fact, you require its 0 and its pole to be outside N, but this is not important because you are considering cohomology over the generic point of X cross X. Okay, so this goes from this stack to some other stack, the stack of iterated Stukas over N, if one wants, which has, so this stack has the following definition. Classify the following objects. So a vector bundle E of rank R on n cross S. This is the first thing. Then, invertible bundles L1, L R-1 plus global section L1, L R-1 on S. Here, once again, all these things come not from n cross S, but from S. And thirdly, a complete homomorphism between the transform of E by the Frobenius and E himself. Here you don't need any modification because you have required the pole on the 0 to be outside N. So by restriction, the modification disappears. It becomes trivial. So, so you want such a complete homomorphism with the following image. L1, LR-1. So all these things. And in fact, to be precise, you need all of these to be to the power Q-1. For technical reasons, I should already have written that when defining iterated Stukas. So anyway, we have such a morphism. And I should say that in this stack, CRN, the condition that this iterated, this complete homomorphism be an isomorphism, which of course is equivalent to require that all these global sections are invertible. So these conditions defines an open substack, which I denote by an empty index, which in fact has only one point. So it classifies vector bundles endowed with an isomorphism with their transform by Frobenius, and up to isomorphism there is only one such object. Okay? But this object has an automorphism group, which is the finite group GLR of ON. So this stack is a classifying stack of the finite group GLR of ON. And even if you don't know what is a stack, you can admit that this object has a finite étal Galois cover, which I denote in this way, which is the point. And of course, it is finite étal Galois with Galois group GLR of ON. This point, so spec FQ. Then I should say that in the restriction morphism, the open substack of real Stukas is the pullback of this, of this thing, and level structures, so level n structures on Stukas have been defined by Drinfeld, of course, in the following way. So you take Stukas with 0 and pole are outside N, and you take the fiber product over this classifying stack with its finite étal cover consisting of the point. Okay, so this is so you can rephrase things in this way. Okay, so what we want to do now is to, and what we need is to study geometric properties of this restriction morphism. So then, the important information is contained in the following theorem. For any truncation parameter P, convex enough, with respect, in fact, to the genus of X onto N, we have the following properties. Firstly, the morphism the restriction morphism, but combine also with the 0 and the pole. Yes, so this is the compactification we have defined. We have said, did it disappear? Yes, so it was there, but I have erased it. Okay, so this is the compactification. So this morphism, which go to x minus n cross x minus n cross the stack of iterated Stukas on n, this morphism is smooth. The second property is the following. If L is any L-adic sheaf on this stack CRN supported by the boundary, so CRN minus CRN empty, and you do the following. You start from this sheaf, you take the pullback by the restriction morphism, so you get a sheaf on the stack of iterated Stukas, and then, yes, here maybe I have to divide by a to the power z. So, and then you take the cohomology, okay? So by this cohomology over x minus n cross x minus n. And so, the theorem tells you that these sheaves are Lis, so they are local systems, over x minus n cross x minus n, and are negligible. Of course, this second property comes from the fact that the boundary strata in the compactified varieties of iterated Stukas can be expressed in terms of Stukas of lesser rank. So this is a consequence of the proposition there. And we have the following corollary of the theorem. Let C prime Rn be any stack which is representable over CRN and which extends the cover CRN index empty of CRN upper empty. So suppose that and define this. So these are some kind of compactified Stukas with level n structure as the fiber product of iterated Stukas whose pole and 0 are outside n over the stack of iterated Stukas over n with this C prime Rn. Then this object, which has been defined by fiber product, is smooth over x minus n cross x minus n cross CRN. This is a consequence of point 1 in the theorem, of course, because smooth morphisms are preserved by base change. Secondly, it contains Stukas with level n structure as an open substack. And thirdly, so this is because we have required C prime Rn to extend this cover. Okay? And lastly, the boundary, which is the difference between this object and its open substack there, the boundary is R negligible, which means all its cohomology spaces are R negligible. And this is, of course, a consequence of point 2 in the theorem. So in particular, if here we could get something proper over CRn and with boundary which is a divisor with normal crossings, we would get compactification which would be smooth over x minus n over cross x minus n with a boundary divisor with normal crossings and the R negligible. So this would verify all the properties we need. So I thought I could do that, but so in fact what I had done works when n doesn't have any multiplicity. When there are multiplicities, I don't know to do it. So, but what we can do is the following. It is something, in fact, much simpler. So from now on, we let C prime Rn upper be the open substack in CRn, classifying classifying the iterated Stukas over n such that all components U1, UR, so between all the exterior powers of E and its transform by Frobenius, all these components are everywhere not only non-zero, but non-tau nilpotent. So everywhere means over any geometric point of n cross S. So this is obviously an open condition. And then you define C prime Rn, so which we will introduce there, as the normalization of this C prime Rn upper in the cover CRn empty, which is the point, I remind you. Okay. Then everything works with this choice. So there are three results. First, this C prime Rn is a finite, of course, flat but ramified cover of C prime Rn, which extends the cover CRn empty. So this is by definition, the only information here is the fact it is flat. But this object is also smooth over A1 divided by Gm to the power R minus 1. So it is not smooth over this object, but it is smooth over this one, okay? Which means it is smooth globally, and the boundary is a divisor with normal crossings. So this is the first lemma. The second result, which in fact is very, very important, is the fact that the open substack which I denote with a prime in our compactifications. So this open substack defined as the pullback of C prime Rn via the restriction morphism, of course, can also be defined by requiring that the pole, the zero, and all degenerators take value in x minus n. Of course, this condition is a condition stratum by stratum, but so on each stratum it is open, and they glue to define a global open condition. And in fact, it is exactly equivalent to requiring that it is a pullback of this restriction morphism. Okay, and now the theorem so the theorem is that with this choice of C prime Rn, this object verifies for any level n, it verifies all needed conditions 1 to 5. So what were these conditions? So we wanted smoothness, but it comes from we wanted smoothness on the boundary to be a divisor with normal crossings, but it comes from this property here. We wanted local stability of Hecke correspondences, but this property, in fact, comes from the case without level structure. What did we want? Yes, we wanted the boundary strata to have R-negligible cohomology, but this comes from point 2 in the theorem. And lastly, we wanted the Hecke correspondences to be geometric correspondences, which means there are two projections to be proper. And of course, this is not trivial because these objects are not proper over x minus n cross x minus n. But in order to verify this property, you use this lemma, which tells you that these objects are defined by requiring that the poles, the zero, and all degenerators are outside n. And in fact, using that, it is not difficult at all because you can verify that the zero, the pole, and the degenerators are transformed by Hecke correspondences by powers of Frobenius. And, okay, so this is the end of my talk.
Are there any questions?
Perhaps you could explain one point. That is, at some point you compare traces. Trace formula, but you also use the converse theorem.
Yes, so the converse.
You need both.
The trace formula is in one direction, the converse theorems are in the other direction.
Why can't you do everything?
This is, excuse me?
Why can't the trace formula? Why do you need?
So the trace, the converse theorems are when you want to go from Galois representations to automorphic representations. Then you have to use three things. So converse theorems, the Grothendieck functional equations in order to verify one of the hypotheses, and the product formula of Lomont in order to verify that the constants in the functional equations are the same on the Galois side and the automorphic side. Okay.
You can't do this with traces.
No, this doesn't use the trace formula, of course. But the trace formula is when you want to go from automorphic representations to Galois representations. So in order to do that, you want to compute the cohomology spaces of Drinfeld-Stuka varieties. And what you do is to introduce these Ecke correspondences, Frobenius elements, and to count the fixed points. And so first you have a net.
Number field, don't know anything about L function, but you're begging to know about the whole theory. So I'm just trying, I guess, what I'm on functionality, like to tackle. I guess.
Here in the function field case, so something very important which we use very deeply is that you already know all properties of L functions, both on the Galois side and the automorphic side. You have functional equation, so analytic continuation, of course, and also purity results. You also use that in an essential way, so on both sides. So.
Other questions? Well, if not, let's thank the speaker again. And we'll